Welcome everyone, today we have a new guide for Diablo 4, and today we'll be looking at the Necromancer. So in this video, we'll have a look at the max level Necromancer with all of the Codex and also the Book of the Dead. We'll also have a look at the level 28 or 25 Necromancer for the open beta. And here what we'll do is we'll go through some of our notes in terms of skill choices, how the Necromancer works, and also we'll focus on the Book of the Dead, of course. Depending on the choices of those talents, we'll also build our skeleton army, summon army, and also bonus attack, and also bonus attack speed. So there's a lot of things we want to go through, and the focus, of course, will be the summoning build for the Necromancer for this video. Now, similar to all of our videos, we'll start with a summary of the Necromancer skills, and then we'll go through the decisions behind it, and also the Book of the Dead, of course. So starting with the Necromancer, we'll go with the basic skill for Decompose, and this will be the focus of Corpse Explosion. So Decompose will give us more corpses, and this will also increase the damage our minions deal. So this is the focus, because upgrade for Decompose and also Blight for the core skill will increase the damage the minions deal, and most of the damage will be coming from the minions, and also we'll be doing damage with Corpse Explosion. So that come to the Macabre. This comes down to the third skill, which is Corpse Explosion, and we'll be maximum level this skill and also making use of this skill. We'll also be using debuff with Decrepify. We'll also be using the Decrepify for the corruption skill, and this will be a debuff against the enemy. Finally, as for the summoning skill, it is optional to go with a bomb spirit or go with the tentacles. We'll discuss this in the build itself as we get to it. And of course, with the ultimate, we'll be going with Army of the Dead, which give us the potential for infinite summons, maximum attack speed, and a lot more summons to come. And this one's going to be quite interesting with AOE damage as well. Finally, we'll go with Strength of Numbers for the Capstone, which give us more increased attack speed when we have over 7 summons. Together with the debuffs from the Necromancer and also the AOE damage, this build is going to be very interesting. So coming over to the talent tree for the Necromancer, we'll start with the level 50 and also 15 Reno, so this is the end game, and then we'll come back to the level 25 one. So the first thing we want to have a look at is going to be the Book of the Dead. Now as we see the Book of the Dead, I also explain some of my logic and also reasoning with the talent tree. As for the Skeleton Warrior, I'm going with the Skeleton Skirmishers simply because you gain 30% increased damage, you only lose 15% life. Compared to the Shield Bearers, you only gain 15% life. And over here with the Powerful Scythe with heavy attack every 10 seconds, it doesn't really benefit if we attack faster, because the 10 seconds for the Skeletal Reapers are fixed on 10 seconds. But the Skeleton Warriors, on the other hand, if you attack faster, the 30% increased damage will be more beneficial. And on top of that, we'll be going with additional Skirmisher, because we have talent tree that increase attack speed damage of all skeletons, and also we have increased more attack speed with different skills, and also we increase the overall attack speed of the minions when we have 7 summons, so you want as many summons as you can. Now you could go with a critical strike if you're running a high critical build, but it is rare to get that much critical strike for the Necromancer, I think, at least for now. So we're going with additional summons. Now as for the second talent for the mages, the skeletal mages, you can go with the controlling mage with the cold mages, or you can go with the bone mages for direct physical damage. For me, I decided to pick the shadow mages because again, we're building a lot of attack speed, and having more attack speed means that the shadow mages will attack more frequently, and this means they get additional attack every 6 attack. And this is quite interesting, right? Because you have more attacks and you deal more attacks. So this kind of builds on of the maximum attack speed we have, and we can really benefit from that. I don't know what happened there. I accidentally clicked that one. So now you can say that you want the chance of stunning, but I guess this can't happen more than once every 5 seconds. It is limited by the seconds. So, you know, this, I think the best source of damage with the build will be going with the Shadow Mages for the increase attack speed, which really benefits on the increase of attack speed, which you'll see very soon in the talent tree. Now, just to give you guys a preview on the codex, the commander aspects, Unyielding commander aspects, is when you have Army of the Dead activated, your minion gains 70% attack speed and also take less damage. So this is going to be a massive boost when you summon your minions and also have a massive attack speed boost. And finally, as for the golems for the Book of the Dead, now those are quite optional choices. If you want more durability, you can go with tanking, and you can go with maximum life, and you can use the golems to tank up for you, to take more damage for you. But as for me, I want a bit of like sustain for the golem, so draining life for enemies is okay. And if we're draining life, if we're constantly healthy and alive, the golem itself will gain damage reduction and also increase damage dealt. So it's kind of defensive, offensive, and also a bit of AOE damage. Now, of course, if you find your skeletons or yourself taking too much damage, come back to the taunt part. I think taunting is also not bad for the golems. In terms of the stunning golems, I'm not that big fan of, because, we have skills as slows, skills as stuns. So the golem itself is either going to tank for us, or maybe, do more durability and also do a little more damage for us. So coming over to the skill choices for the Necromancer, what I'm thinking is we can go with Decompose. Now, because the Decompose will be the foundation to create more corpses, and this will also allow us to have, gaining more essences if enemy dies while decomposed, and also the increase of damage deal for your minions. If you have a look at the passives and especially upgrades for some of the skills were tailor-made for the minions. So for example, with Decompose, if enemy is affected by Decompose, it will increase you and your minion damage dealt by 10%. So this is going to be the cornerstone to buff the minions and yourself. And similarly, we'll go with Blight over here. We can go with level 5 Blight for a little more damage. Of course, you can go with lower level Blight and go with more passive as well. So for the Blight upgrade, we'll go with Blight slows enemies. You'll have increased damage dealt to slow enemies as well, so in the later passives. And after that, you'll deal additional 10% damage when enemies are blighted for you and your minions. So this is very good. Now the perks over here, this is a little optional. I don't plan to, rush this one, Reconstruction, but later in the game, if you have more skill points, you can put a few points in this to get more corpses. And if you have more corpses, you can do more corpse explosion for more damage. So coming over to the Macabre skill section, which is the third skill section, what we want to focus on is the first section of the passives that gives you increased damage and also life for the skeleton warriors. Notice that suddenly you get 45% life and also damage increase. So this, in return, of course, shines on the additional increase of 30% life, which will give us a better multiplier. So you definitely want this one. After that, another cornerstone of our build is that we'll be going with Corpse Explosion. So the more corpses we get, more Corpse Explosion we deal, will clear out enemies. And this in return will create more corpses because you're damaging enemies. Well, at least at 12%, and also double against bosses. So we'll go with a passive of Increased Radius, and after that we'll go with a passive that the Corpse Explosion will deal additional damage to stunned, slowed, vulnerable enemies by 15%. So remember previously we have that we'll be slowing enemies by 25% with Blight, so it kind of sinks in. After that, this particular skill with Grim Harvest is just because I need a bit of skill points, and also in case we wanted more essence. Essence will become especially useful simply because in the future you'll be gaining the increase of damage the more resource you have, and we'll look into this very soon on the future skills. But of course, at the start of the builds, I don't recommend rushing this one. This is only because I have a bit more skill points in the end. Next up, we have Corruption. Now, Corruption is ideally for debuffs, and over here we'll go with Decrepify. So we'll provide enemy with additional spells and also debuff their damage. Now, you can go with high level Corruption in terms of those passives. So for example, if you don't find yourself needing essence, you can go with high level Corruption, and you can change a little bit over here as well for level 5 Corruption, which will have a better stats and also better scaling. And this does cost 10 essence as well. So with the Corruption upgrades, we'll go with the Corruption have chance of stunning enemies, which give us more defensiveness and also they take more damage when they're stunned. And finally, you and your minions can instant kill enemies when they're below 10% HP. This works for elites and normal monsters, but not on bosses. This is quite good of a damage buff, and this allows you pretty much to one-shot enemies at after 90% HP. And of course over here with Corruption, we also have the Skeleton Mages upgrade. So 45% damage for Skeleton Mages and also the HP. Now coming over to the next part, we have the Summoning. Now this one is very interesting. So I have two initial thoughts, because we want to deal a little more AOE damage. And at the same time, we also want to have a little bit of buffs to the Corpse Explosion. So the choices I went is with a Bomb Spirit, because this particular skill have a 12-second cooldown, which also increases damage dealt the more resource you have, and also it increases itself by critical strike by 10%. So it's kind of like a freebie upgrade that have a lower cooldown when you critical strike, and it give you a critical strike of additional 10%, and also it has, decent damage, which is AOE, and also the multiplier is that for every point of essence you spend, you gain 3% more damage. So that means the more essence you have, more resource you have, you deal massive damage at the start, which is a really good burst damage. And this combined with the ability to summon more of the Bone Spirit when you pick up Blood Orbs can give you almost unlimited summons, because you get more Blood Orbs and then you summon more Bone Spirit. If you get a bunch of Blood Orbs, all of a sudden you summon 3 or 4 of them, and this could be very powerful. But the focus over here is this also deals base damage on your current life percent. So if you have more life and if you're quite durable, usually with minions you don't take a lot of damage, right? You'll deal more damage as well. Now the other options with picking the summoning skills for our build is to go with the corpse tendrils. So I guess the pulling of enemies. So you'll be pulling enemies together and you'll be stunning them and also dealing damage. The damage is not going to be massive, but the focus over here is you'll be slowing enemies. And on top of that, you'll deal additional damage to enemies who are stunned. And this means you do additional corpse explosion damage. Because the skill itself does not consume the corpses, it uses corpses. So you cannot pull enemies together, then you explode them with corpses. So this is definitely optional. If you don't plan to use a Bone Spirit, I definitely recommend going here. And I want to try it out to see if the corpse explosion damage is going to be high enough. If it is, we don't have to go with a Bone Spirit. But if you're getting more resource or getting more value out of the Bone Spirit, you can of course go with this skill. So this is more of a utility control and also buffing your existing skill. This is a new skill that has its own benefit. Lower cooldown when you critical hit, better cooldown, and also you get Blood Orbs, you summon those spirits. And finally, we come to the ultimate section. As you can see, most of the passes are perks over here, and this is the greatest source of damage for the Necromancer for the summoning build. Simply because, Army of the Dead will go with this, because this will give us chance to live behind corpses and also to summon rapidly skeleton warriors and also skeleton mages. The other focus is that you get a massive boost to your defense and also offense to your minions. Minions get 45% of your resistance. Minions also can't lose more than 20% HP in one damage. So that means they can last at least 3 or 4 or 5 attacks from enemies. On top of that, minions will deal increased damage when you're next to your minions, which is very good, because you also have passives that increase enemy damage taken when you're next to them. And finally, you will be giving minions additional attack speed when you're healthy, when you're above 80% HP. Usually you do want to stay on high HP, and you can, because the minions can tank for you, they can kill enemies for you very fast. Now, because we're going with a bit of damage for the golems, over here we also have the increased damage and also life for the golems by 45%. So this will give a boost to your golems. Now there is a skill I forgot to mention. I actually thought this is the other way around. So if you have no summons, you actually take less damage. I thought you have more summons, you take less damage. So be aware of this. Don't pick this one if you're going for the summoning build. Oh, I have 3 more points. Okay, allocate. So just be aware of this. I was picking this initially. I was like, hey, this gives me damage reduction. I was like, wait, it doesn't. So make sure you notice, guys, this one does not help with the summoning build, because we have more active minions. This does not help. And as for the capstone of the build, it's quite straightforward, because there's only one that provides summoning benefits. So when you have at least 7 minions, they gain 20% attack speed. And this comes back to a skeleton dealing more damage and also more attacks for the skeleton mages. Even the golems will do more damage too. So that kind of sums up for the skill traits over here. The biggest adjustment I might have is to take away the Bone Spirit and go into the Corpse Tendrils, because the build will focus on Corpse Explosion. It really depends how beneficial of a damage boost this skill can be, because this skill by itself is definitely great. So coming over to the Codex of Power, we'll have something standard like the aspect of Disobedience and also the aspect of Might. So this is the damage reduction and also provide more armor and also, a bit of defensiveness. As for the offensiveness, I was really looking into things that provide the summons with benefits. For example, you get more Bone Spirits when you get Blood Orbs. This is optional only if you go with Bone Spirits. But one of the best ones we have is going to be Unyielding Army. This provides us with a massive boost of damage in terms of attack speed and also damage reduction. So 70% attack speed, 90% damage reduction. It's going to be, this is the thing that gives you Undying Army with maximal damage, and this is when you go infinite summons with this combination. Now we also have the aspect of Reanimation, so skeletons, while they are alive, they gain up to 20% damage. which is very good, right? So this is good for your enemies' damage, and we have more skeletons, means more multipliers and more damage. Finally, if you're going with a Bone Spirit build, we can go with Bone Spirit increased distance traveled. I'm not saying this will be the best one, because ideally you could be close to your minions for more damage boost. But if you're far away or Bone Spirit just hit enemies packed as far away, you also gain a damage boost with this way. Now there's a lot of options with the resource for the aspects for the Necromancer. We can go with Blood Orbs, reduce your ultimate cooldown by 0.5 seconds. Because our build will revolve around the Unyielding the Army of the Dead, and a lot of passive variants. So if you're going with Army of the Dead, you definitely want this particular passive just because you get more summons and your army comes back with more boost of damage. After that, we can go with Flash Rending aspects. So after decomposing sponsor corpse, you get more essence, which give us more energy to cast other things. And of course, you can go with aspect of Requiem, which gives you additional essence for minions you have, and this can be up to 7, 10 or even more minions. And finally, the hulking aspects will give the golem additional damage in terms of lower cooldown reduction. And because the idea of the concept is our golem is going to be a blood golem initially, so the blood golem will draw life from nearby enemies, and if this is considered as doing damage to enemies, this can be a very fast cooldown reduction, because constantly there are many enemies next to you, right? So this could be quite interesting, and this is something that keeps your golems alive and also healthy. Now as for the utility aspects, I'm going with aspect of the void. So the Blight fills up area and also it pulls enemies around the affected area. So this is kind of compensation for not having the utility potential of pulling enemies onto the corpses. So the Blight can also pull enemies. And this means that you can cast Blight on the corpses and pull them together, then use a corpse explosion. Of course, if you already have the passives over here, which allows you to pull enemies together, maybe you don't need these aspects as well. And just in case we get really low on HP and they're blocking us, which I don't think is going to be the case, you can go with a Ghost Worker to move through enemies. But ideally, I don't think any of those really helps. But if you're getting higher critical chances, especially with the 10% critical chance bonus for the Bone Spirit, you can go with Wind Striker. But I don't think any of the mobility is a major factor. And you can see the little downside for the summoning build and for the Necromancer is that we do have less mobility. Now before we finish, let's quickly go through the open beta builds. Here you might be able to get 3 renown points, so you can go up to level 28 with Necromancer. And this is the build for level 25 pretty much. So for the beta build, we go with Decompose, similar to before, and you go with level 1 Blight. And you can go with additional points in Corpse Explosion. I only went to level 4, but you can go to level 5. And this will be the major source of damage for the Necromancer, other than the summons. Of course, here we'll be going for the buff to summons, so 40% damage increase for Skeleton Warriors and also Skeleton Mages. We'll go with 1 level Decrepify, so we have any debuffs and also, reduce the enemy's damage. And over here, we'll be going with the Corpse Tendrils, simply because we can't max level the Bone Spirit, and this won't be that effective. So this utility definitely prevails at the lower levels. And coming over here, we'll go with Army of the Dead. Now notice that we have additional points, so if I take those away, we'll be on level 26, right? Now if we take this away, 1 from Corpse Explosion, I can take it away. So if I take 1 level from Corpse Explosion, you just have level 25. But the more levels you have with Reno, the more passives you can get for the beta. And of course, this will give you the army of, your summoning army, and this will also give you skeletons. So I guess for the open beta, the Necromancer summoning build won't be that strong, simply because there's a lot of good perks over here and you just don't have the skill points. Necromancer definitely shines after level 25, so this is definitely a setback if you're planning to test this build during the beta. Now before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. So I just started a YouTube channel with my girlfriend yesterday, and you can see this is only 12 hours old, this YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.